Count Dooku wasn't evil. He was early. He saw the truth before anyone else did, and the galaxy punished him for it. While the Jedi sat in temples debating philosophy, Dooku saw the Republic collapsing under greed and corruption. And instead of pretending everything was fine, he tried to fix it. That's what makes him dangerous, and that's what makes him right. He didn't want power for himself, he wanted balance for everyone. But when the only way to change a broken system is to burn it down, you start mistaking the fire for light. Dooku thought he was saving the galaxy, but in the process, he became the weapon it used to destroy itself. The irony is brutal. He left the Jedi because they were blind to the truth, and then joined the Sith, who weaponized that truth against him. The man who once stood for honor became a pawn in the greatest deception the galaxy had ever seen. And the worst part is, he saw it coming. He just couldn't stop it. Dooku wasn't driven by hate. He was driven by clarity. He saw corruption, manipulation, and hypocrisy long before it became obvious to everyone else. And the galaxy called him a villain for trying to expose it. That's not darkness, that's frustration turned into rebellion. Even his death wasn't justice. It was irony. Betrayed by the apprentice he thought would carry his vision, executed by the master who promised him purpose. His final moment wasn't fear, it was realization. The understanding that everything he fought for was twisted into everything he despised. In this video we'll explore why Count Dooku was more visionary than villain, how his warnings about the Jedi proved true, and why one man's pursuit of reform became one of the most tragic stories in all of Star Wars. Count Dooku's story doesn't begin with evil, it begins with disappointment. He wasn't some power-hungry noble plotting galactic domination. He was a man who believed the Jedi had lost their way. Long before he ever met Sidious, Dooku saw what the Council refused to acknowledge. The Republic wasn't dying because of outside enemies, it was decaying from within. The Senate was corrupt, the Jedi were complacent, and the Force had become a religion of routine instead of revelation. What makes Dooku fascinating is that he was right. Every criticism he had of the Jedi was true. They were serving politicians instead of principles. They claimed neutrality but acted as soldiers. They preached enlightenment while ignoring suffering. And the worst part, they knew it but were too afraid to change. Dooku wasn't a rebel for leaving. He was a reformer who realized the system was unsalvageable. In the Tales of the Jedi series, we see the spark of his disillusionment. Watching a corrupt senator exploit his people while the Jedi stand idle is the moment everything clicks for him. It's not anger, it's awakening. He realizes that the Order's so-called balance is built on obedience, not justice. The Jedi aren't guardians, they're administrators of a dying empire. Even his departure from the Order wasn't done in rage. He left with dignity, calm, and conviction. Yoda tried to reason with him, but Dooku had already made peace with his choice. It's almost ironic. The Jedi who preached detachment were emotionally crippled by his decision to detach from them. Dooku didn't turn against the Jedi because he hated them. He turned because he loved what they should have been. He wanted an order that served the people, not politicians. An order that questioned power instead of protecting it. He wasn't fighting against the Republic, he was fighting for the soul of it. His tragedy is that his clarity made him dangerous. The galaxy doesn't reward those who tell the truth. It punishes them. And Dooku's punishment was isolation. With no council to guide him, no allies to trust, he was vulnerable to manipulation. That's when Sidious found him. Not as a villain, but as an opportunity. The Sith didn't seduce Dooku with promises of destruction. They seduced him with promises of change. He believed that by joining them, he could rebuild the galaxy from within. He thought he could play both sides, reform the system, and use the dark side without losing himself. That's how idealists fall. They think they're immune to corruption. What makes Dooku's story tragic is that he never stopped being right. He just stopped being good. The Republic was corrupt. The Jedi were blind. But in trying to fix everything, he became another symptom of the same disease. The truth is, Dooku didn't lose faith in the Force. He lost faith in people. And when a visionary stops believing in others, he stops being a leader and starts being a tyrant. Count Dooku's revolution wasn't built on hatred. It was built on paperwork. He didn't march armies into battle because he wanted chaos. He did it because the Senate's corruption had made peace impossible. The Confederacy of Independent Systems wasn't born from darkness. It was born from disillusionment. Planets were tired of paying taxes to a government that didn't care about them. And Dooku gave them a voice. He wasn't lying when he told Obi-Wan the Republic was under the control of a Sith Lord. He warned him. The irony is that he was right about everything, just wrong about his methods. That's what makes him so compelling. Dooku was never evil in the moustache-twirling sense. He was practical to the point of arrogance. The tragedy is that his logic made sense. The Separatists had legitimate grievances. Corruption, exploitation, endless bureaucracy. It all pushed them to the edge. Dooku united them under one banner, believing that he could create a cleaner, freer government. But the entire movement was a puppet show designed by Sidious. And Dooku never realized he was the lead actor in his own deception. You can almost admire his conviction. Even after discovering the darkness within the Republic, he still thought structure could fix it. He didn't see that the system wasn't broken. It was designed to be. Sidious didn't corrupt the galaxy. He used Dooku to expose how corrupt it already was. In Attack of the Clones, Dooku's meeting with Obi-Wan is one of the most underrated scenes in the saga. He literally tells the truth. The Sith control the Senate, the Republic is doomed, and the Jedi are blind. And Obi-Wan's response isn't disbelief, it's discomfort, because part of him knows Dooku might be right. That's the genius of his character. He's the villain who's correct about the problem, just catastrophically wrong about the solution. He didn't crave power for himself. He wanted control over chaos. But that's the seductive trap of ideology. The moment you believe only you can fix the world, you start believing the world deserves to suffer until it agrees with you. Dooku crossed that line quietly, without even noticing it. His politics turned to pride, his pride turned to cruelty, and soon he was making choices he once would have condemned. Ordering assassinations, overseeing invasions, executing prisoners, all in the name of reform. He told himself it was necessary, but the moment reform demands blood, it stops being progress, it becomes dogma. And maybe that's why Sidious kept him alive so long. He needed a man who believed he was righteous, a puppet who would never admit he had strings. In the end, Dooku didn't build a better galaxy. He built a blueprint for tyranny. And when his usefulness ended, his master erased him like a signature on a contract. That's not betrayal. That's business. When Dooku knelt before Sidious, he didn't see it as submission. He saw it as strategy. He believed he could master the dark side without becoming its slave. That arrogance is what killed him. The Jedi saw the Sith as monsters. Dooku saw them as tools. And that's what made his fall so believable. By the time of Revenge of the Sith, he truly thought he was building a new order. He believed he and Sidious would overthrow the Republic, purge the Jedi, and create a stronger, purer galaxy. But what he didn't realize was that he'd already been replaced. The apprentice who thought he was the architect was really the scaffolding. When Palpatine ordered Anakin to kill him, Dooku's face said it all. It wasn't fear, it was realization. The look of a man who finally understood he'd been used by the very system he tried to destroy. The Republic took his faith, the Jedi took his purpose, and the Sith took his life. That's the full circle of his tragedy. Dooku's story mirrors the downfall of every idealist who stares too long into the machine. He didn't crave evil, he craved efficiency. But efficiency without empathy becomes tyranny dressed in elegance. And no one in Star Wars embodied that more perfectly than Count Dooku. Even his lightsaber tells the story. Refined, curved, regal. An aristocrat's weapon for a civilized war. Everything about him screamed control. But in the end, he controlled nothing. His armies obeyed Sidious. His fate was sealed by Anakin, and his dream was hijacked by the Empire. And yet his warnings came true. The Jedi fell to arrogance. The Republic became an empire, and his former apprentice became the very monster he feared most. Dooku was right about the disease, but wrong about the cure. His prophecy was fulfilled, but without him in it. You can almost feel the irony echoing through his legacy. The man who wanted to save the galaxy ended up teaching it how to fall. His fall wasn't the failure of wisdom. It was the failure of patience. He saw too much, too early, and couldn't wait for others to catch up. Dooku's story isn't about corruption. It's about conviction. He wasn't evil for what he believed. He was evil for what he was willing to do in the name of it. And that's why his legacy feels so haunting. Because in another timeline, if someone had listened to him, maybe he wouldn't have fallen at all. Maybe the galaxy could have been saved before it needed an empire. But history doesn't remember visionaries, it remembers villains. And that's the final tragedy of Count Dooku. He was never the Sith he pretended to be. He was a Jedi who cared too much to stay silent, and paid for it with his soul.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.